record. I want to go right back out to Gage Goulding. We had some interruptions earlier with the live shot. Gage, we got you back. You were at that press briefing earlier talking about some of the takeaways from that briefing.
Yeah, one of the biggest takeaways that we saw, as I was saying, was the collaboration between all of these different units, local, county, state, and federal, up to ATF. We saw constable's office, and you could see several of those units still here, kind of where they were briefing. I believe that's Chief Finner I'm seeing down there. I saw Mayor Whitmire just a moment ago before I turned my back, but they are all here still investigating, as really, you know, once they contain a situation like this, then the investigative side of this really progresses. That's when they start trying to figure out and answer those big questions as to why, what was the motive, what was the driver. And you know what kind of complicates this situation even more is that there was a hazmat concern as well. So that's why you see quite the number of HFD firefighters out here, is because they're investigating both a bomb threat but also a suspect that was spraying some unknown substance. As they come down the walkway right over here, you can see some of those tactical officers in between the shrubbery still with their helmets on, their long rifles, as they were still coming out of the church. So investigation still very much so in a fresh sense. But another thing I took away was you could see it in Mayor Whitmire's, the corner of his eyes, you know, before he passed the microphone off to Chief Finner. You could see almost tears building in his eyes, because he knew what the chief was going to say. He was going to say that, you know, a suspect came in with an innocent child, a 5-year-old child. We do not know if that child is related to Oakham. We can see also here, you see FBI is also on scene here. That's the first time that I personally have seen FBI on scene. So they do have the gamut here of the different agencies in Southeast Texas. But going back to what I was saying, Bill, you could see it in the mayor's eyes, and that's difficult for the mayor to get in front of the city and discuss that an innocent child was brought into this situation, and those off-duty HPD officers had no other choice. Once this woman started opening fire and started shooting inside Lakewood Church, they had no other choice but to return fire. At this point, we don't know if it was those off-duty officers, their bullets, that struck this 5-year-old girl, who is alive in critical condition at last check. But that's incredibly difficult to comprehend and understand. This is an innocent child, approximately 5 years old, has nothing to do with anything that's going on with this person that they walked into this building with, but are now caught in the middle of this entire situation. And on the other side of this as well, a 56-year-old man shot in the thigh, hip area, and that leg area. We're told that he is in a stable condition. We're not sure how this person was shot either. We know that the suspect did start shooting from a long rifle, but we don't know if it was their bullets or kind of, once again, a possible, you know, caught in the crossfire situation. One thing I do want to discuss, though, is that there was another element. There was this woman that claimed she had explosives, claimed that she had bombs. So now when you're trying to evacuate all these people from this essentially arena, right, trying to evacuate all these people, now there's this other added issue in this problem. Just as they peel back the layers of this issue, now there's another problem, that there's the hazmat and then there's the explosives. The good news is, as of so far, as of the last time we heard, which was only about 15 minutes or so ago, that there has been no explosives found, and that they have not found anything to be concerned of right now. So whatever this person was spraying, it doesn't seem to be of major concern. But I think one thing that they really touched on, and there's been no motive, but what I'm taking away from this entire press conference, they don't know what the motive was, but they did hit on, we were gathered here on a Sunday at a place of worship on one of the biggest sporting days of the year across the globe, not just here in Texas, but across the globe. All eyes are watching the Super Bowl. And they touched on that. They specifically said that. Chief Finner specifically said that, and the mayor specifically said that. So that's a thought that's clearly on the top of their mind. Now, Pastor Joel Osteen, he spoke briefly but would not take any questions. The chief also, this is very preliminary information, so he didn't have a lot of answers for questions, but One thing that I had to ask was, all of the officers here wear body cams. Is there body camera footage that might be a little bit of an inside look as to what happened as this all unfolded here inside Lakewood Church? The chief did not know if there was any body camera footage, but with any critical incident, that's what they call these kind of calls, as a critical incident. They release this kind of information, any video footage that's prevalent to the public to see, they release that within a timely manner. So the chief also hitting that if there is that video that exists, body camera or something that could be helpful, they will then release that. But the biggest question that we go into this evening is wondering why. Why did somebody walk into this church where a Spanish service was getting underway with a gun and start shooting? But I think something that we can all be very thankful for is this is in a very central location. Officers were here in a matter of seconds and minutes, but even more so that there were off-duty officers already inside Lakewood Church, and that really helped this situation go from being a lot worse. I believe the mayor opened the press conference with that, saying this could have been a lot worse. This could have been an absolute tragedy. This is a very scary situation, and for two people, a 5-year-old child and a 56-year-old man, this is a very, very scary and impacting situation. But if it weren't for having those officers there in the area, ready to respond, and not only ready to respond, but they did respond. They picked up their weapons, they fired, and as they call it, they neutralized the threat, right? That's the last case scenario, that's the worst case scenario, but they did their job. Thankfully, they were here, or else we could be talking about a very different story right now. So if there is a silver lining, they kind of said that in that news briefing, if there is a silver lining, it is that as we talk right now, there's only one deceased person in this entire situation, and it is the shooter, Bill.
Gage Goulding there on the ground. As Gage mentioned, the threat has been neutralized. Patrols will be stepped up in places of worship all around. Gage, I would also assume while you're there, I want to get to this question real quick. I would also assume that while the threat is neutralized, this is going to be an active investigation for some time. So if you can, avoid the area.
Yeah, no, 100%, absolutely. And I think that was the point of them hurrying up. They didn't have all the answers that they wanted to give, and you could sense that in the press briefing, is that they were very much so hurrying because, once again, there is that little football game that's being played today, and all eyes are shifted to that. So they wanted to get this information out as quick as they could to make sure that the public is informed about what is happening down here in the Upper Kirby area. Obviously, this is a major thoroughfare right through here, 59 right behind me. They wanted to get this information out before the Super Bowl. But yeah, this is very much so just getting started. You look at the timeline of one of these situations, there's the response, there's the actual police factor of like getting things under control, right? And then there's the investigation, and the investigation is sometimes, if not more often, the longest part of these entire police incidents, especially with something like this where there is nobody to interview other than this 5-year-old child who is at Texas Children's right now. So they have other things going on. I'm sure that's going to be part of what they're doing, is interviewing that child, but the main suspect who they want to talk to, they're not able to because that person is deceased. So they have to now kind of work backwards and against challenges to try to figure this out. They advise and they're asking people to please avoid this area. Richmond, the feeder roads on 59, Timmins, in around Greenway Plaza, out by the Costco out here, if you know where I'm talking about. I would say in between Shepherd and that area, you're probably going to want to just try to avoid as much as possible because, as you can see, there is a barrage of vehicles, and still some of these armed officers and deputies coming out of the facility here. And like, here they come walking now. As if we want to zoom in, Patrick, if you could take a zoom in. I mean, are they walking? Is this the robotic robot that I was talking about earlier? I do believe it might be. Yeah, that's it right there. So that's one of the bomb detection devices that they were using. That went in well over an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, and they're just now coming out. Once again, this is a huge venue. This is a large facility, but they're just now coming out. And as you look down the street, you can see these SWAT officers in the tactical, BDU gear. You see their helmets are off. They're carrying their gear in a much more casual sense, which is a very, very, very good thing to see. But from the investigative side of things, Bill, this is going to be, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. We are just getting started. So down this way, it's going to be a traffic headache and a nightmare as they continue to investigate, at least for today.
Goulding there on the ground there at Lakewood. Thank you, Gage. Mayor John Whitmire also spoke at that